Hey friends, Sleepy here, and welcome to a new collection video. Today we're going to take a look at my Sega Dreamcast collection. Now, it has been 11 years since the last time I filmed my Sega Dreamcast collection, and in those 11 years I have added several new titles to the collection, so you guys will see all the games that I have. I currently own 88 games for the Sega Dreamcast. I do own some doubles. There are some games that I'm missing manuals for, which I do need to track down. I also have some disc-only games that are in DVD-style cases with printed out custom artwork, which you guys will see as well. Got the Sega Dreamcast demo discs that are out there, as I was a huge fan of the demo discs for the Sega Dreamcast, as that was a great way for me to play and experience a lot of Dreamcast games when I didn't own them. So you guys will see those as well. I have one PAL title, which you guys will see in this video. Now, I've been a huge fan of the Sega Dreamcast ever since it launched back in 99, so back in 1999. My brother and I saved up our allowance, and we bought our own Sega Dreamcast for $200, and it came bundled with the Generator Volume 1 demo disc, which gave us a chance to play some games, because we did not have any games at launch. We literally just had the console, but we did go to Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and this Video Hut, which is a little mom and pop game store, and we would rent Dreamcast games from them. But eventually we bothered my dad enough that he went and bought us Sonic Adventure, and that was our very first Dreamcast title, and I still own that. I have all the Sega Dreamcast games that I've ever owned. I've never sold any off. I also own that original console as well in box. I also own two of the black Sega Sports Edition Dreamcast, which is actually my favorite Dreamcast, as there was not a whole lot of collector's edition versions of the consoles released. But let's check out the Sega Dreamcast collection. Alright friends, we'll get started here. I'm going to start off with the different demo discs that I have. I actually have two of these, and this is the Generator Volume 1 demo disc that came bundled with my Sega Dreamcast. So the early models of the Sega Dreamcast came bundled with demo discs, and so I have two of those here in printed out cases. They did come with a little paper sleeve, but those are inside here. What was really amazing about this is it gave you a preview of games to check out for the Dreamcast, and I played this demo disc like crazy. We had Sonic Adventure, Sega Bass Fishing, Flag to Flag Racing, House of the Dead 2, NFL 2K2, NBA 2K2, Hydro Thunder, NFL Blitz 2000, Ready to Rumble Boxing, Monaco Grand Prix, and Power Stone. I played the hell out of this demo disc. I also played with friends and stuff. I remember my brother and I got really good at that first stage in Sonic Adventure, because that's the only stage you could play in the demo disc, and we played that to hell. I mean, this demo disc got played like crazy. I was over and over playing it and checking out the various games, because that's all we had at the time, and I absolutely loved it. And I've always loved demo discs because it was such a great way for you to experience games and get a little preview of what the games are like. You know, it's such a shame that we don't really have a whole lot of demos out there. I have seen some more recently for the 8th and 9th gen, but demo discs back in the day were just such a great way for you to play and experience a game early and see if you actually wanted to buy or pre-order it. And sometimes when you did pre-order a game, they actually would give you a demo disc, which is cool. So next up we have the Sega Demo Disc Generator Volume 2, which had Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, Soul Reaver, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Railroad Tycoon 2, Sonic Adventure, Dead or Alive 2, Rayman 2: The Great Escape, Fur Fighters, and MDK 2. So that was really cool. And then for the official Sega Dreamcast magazine, there was a whole run of Dreamcast magazines that came bundled with demo discs. Now, the very first one is actually just a CD for your PC, which had 29 videos talking about the various Dreamcast games for launch and stuff. So there was no actual playable demos, just videos you could watch on your computer, which is pretty cool. And then we have Sega Dreamcast Magazine Volume 2, Sega Dreamcast Volume 3, Sega Dreamcast Volume 4, Sega Dreamcast Volume 5. I have two copies of Sega Dreamcast Volume 6, Sega Dreamcast Volume 7, the Sega Dreamcast Magazine Volume 8, And looks like I have another Volume 8. Sega Dreamcast Volume 9. Sega Dreamcast Magazine Volume 10. And the final one from February 2001, Volume 11, Sega Dreamcast Magazine. So really cool. Great collection of demo discs, and I love that Sega Dreamcast magazine. I actually need to track down the magazines that go with the demo discs, as I only have a handful of those, but I love that magazine, and it's such a shame that the Dreamcast ended up being a failure for Sega, as I loved the console, but ultimately what killed it was a PlayStation 2 and not having a DVD drive. But I've loved the Dreamcast ever since it launched, and I still love it here in 2023, 24 years later. Fantastic console. Alright, now we'll go over some of my disc-only games that I have. First up, I have Speed Devils, which is a really cool racing title. Interesting one. There was a rare clean version released for Walmart where it doesn't have a picture of the devil on the cover. It was for Walmart, so that's a really expensive version, but otherwise you can get a regular version of this game for like 10-20 bucks or something. But really cool racing title. Next up, we have Arabian Nights, a dazzling 3D action adventure game. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I found it at a thrift store many years ago, so I would like to check it out eventually. Next up, we have Shadow Man, which this was really cool. Was also released on the Nintendo 64. That was a pretty cool game. Dead or Alive 2, an awesome fighting game, especially on the Dreamcast. The graphics look good, and they still hold up well today. Awesome title. NFL Blitz 2000, love the Blitz games, love playing them in the arcade, I love playing them on consoles and stuff. They look the best on Dreamcast compared to PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64 versions. Fantastic game. Sega Sports, NFL 2K, loved the NFL 2K games. Sega Sports games were amazing. I played a lot of sports titles for the Dreamcast and absolutely loved them. The graphics were amazing, the controls were good, and I loved the 2K series. It's a shame that this series got booted out and that we only have Madden these days, but I love some of the non-Madden games and sports series out there, and that was one of my favorite football games back in the day. I also have Sega Sports NFL 2K1 and Sega Sports NFL 2K2. Awesome football titles. Next up, we have Blue Stinger. This is a really awesome game. Really cool. It's been years since I've played it. It was a fantastic game. I would love to get a complete version of this someday, but it has gotten a little expensive. Vigilante 8 Second Offense. So Vigilante 8 plays a lot like Twisted Metal. Now, a lot of people love this game, but there's also people who hate it. I've always loved Vigilante 8. It's such a fantastic game, and this is the second game in the series. Fantastic game. If you like combat car games like Twisted Metal, I recommend checking out the Vigilante 8 games. They're really cool. And finally, we have Dino Crisis, which I'm a huge fan of. Dino Crisis. I beat it on PlayStation 1. I beat it on the Dreamcast many times. I do need to get a complete version of this again for the Dreamcast, as I gave the copy I had complete to a buddy since I had this loose copy in this case. But I would like to eventually get a complete copy back in my collection. Alright, now we'll move on to here. I got some sports titles here. As told you guys I was a big fan of the sports games back in the day, especially on Dreamcast, but I have NBA 2K, which started my love for the NBA 2K series. I still play the new ones to this day. Huge fan. My favorite basketball franchise of all time has been the NBA 2K series, and this is the one that started all. 2K. Awesome game. And then we've got NBA 2K1. I actually have a open copy, and then I have a not for resale version. I believe this came bundled with the black Sega Sports Edition console. I'm pretty sure that's where it came from, but it is neat just to have an old sealed Dreamcast game. Another fantastic game in that NBA 2K series. NBA 2K2. So the final one released for the Dreamcast. Awesome basketball title. NFL 2K. I actually have two different versions, which this is the Sega All-Stars version, so basically like a greatest hits, but the ones they did for Dreamcast titles that sold really well. So I do have a couple copies of this. Fantastic football game though. NFL 2K1, another one that I have two copies of. Even better than the original 2K football title. Very awesome. And then NFL 2K2, which was the final one in the NFL 2K series released for Dreamcast. Great football title. I have Sega Sports NCAA 2K2 College Football Road to the Rose Bowl. So really cool college football game. Also good because it plays just like the NFL 2K game. Really good one. Next up we have Sega Sports Tennis 2K2. Nah, not the greatest. I used to like tennis games, but I'm more like Mario Tennis kind of games versus these live action tennis games. But if you like tennis, it's a good game. Next up I have 2 copies of WWF Royal Rumble. Oh, this game was cool because it was in the arcade. This was the first console game to ever let you have 9 wrestlers in the ring at one time, and you had doubles of wrestlers and stuff. Fantastic wrestling game. Really cool and interesting. I've never seen another wrestling game for consoles that let you have 9 wrestlers in the ring at a time. Now, it is arcade style, and it's not going to be the best wrestling game in the world, but my brother and I absolutely loved this and played this like crazy. But it was a cool arcade game because it was also released in the arcade, which I remember playing it. Awesome game for the Dreamcast. Definitely recommend WWF Royal Rumble. If you're a fan of old wrestling games, you'll have fun with this one. Next up, I got 2 copies of Rippin' Rider Snowboarding, so a snowboarding game, which I do love snowboarding games, and this one was pretty cool and really fun. Next up, I have 3 copies of Sega Bass Fishing. I actually have the fishing rod for this. Remember when my dad bought this for us, and I just loved it. It just was fun, an arcade fishing game, and you got to play with the little fishing reel and cast out and stuff. It was just a fun little arcade fishing game, and I played the hell out of this, and so did my dad. So I have 1 complete copy, and then I also have 2 copies that are missing manuals that I found at thrift stores over the years. But fantastic fishing game. I'm gonna have to bust this out, bring my Dreamcast over to my parents' house and play this with my dad again, because it's been years since him and I have played it. I think he'd get a kick out of it. Next up, I've got 2 copies of Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, which I love Tomb Raider, and this one with the green one I remember getting at a thrift store for super cheap. Fantastic game, and Tomb Raider games look really good on the Sega Dreamcast, especially when you compare it to the PS1 versions. Fantastic game. Highly recommend this one if you got a Dreamcast. Next up, we got Hydro Thunder for Dreamcast. I do need to get a manual for this. I love this game. I played it in the arcade like crazy. I played it on the Nintendo 64, and I played the Dreamcast version. The Dreamcast version has always been my preferred way of playing Hydro Thunder. Awesome game. Now, this has been ported to modern consoles. I think Xbox 360 had it in the arcade marketplace. But I've always loved playing the original Dreamcast version. I just need to get a manual, as I lost it, and I don't know what happened to it, so do need to track down a manual for it, but a fantastic game for Dreamcast. Next up, here's another fun game I love, which is Silver, and I had bought this, and it did not have the manual, sadly, so I do need to track it down, but this is a really cool, kind of like 3D, 2D action RPG that I had played and then stopped and then played and stopped, and then I played it a couple years ago and got pretty far in it. I do need to resume my journey and beat it, as it is a fantastic game. It was also released on PC, but I've only ever played the Dreamcast version. Definitely recommend this if you like action RPGs. This is an awesome game. Next up, we have Sydney 2000, so an Olympic Dreamcast game. I used to enjoy playing this with friends and stuff, but I have not played it in years. Would not really recommend this one. Next up, we have NBA Showtime, NBA on NBC. An interesting basketball game, but not as good as the 2K series, so I don't recommend it. Next up, we have Sega Sports NHL 2K, which I love hockey games. This one was a fun one to play. Virtual Striker 2, so a soccer title, which I'm not a big fan of soccer games, but I did enjoy playing it back when this was first released. I have 2 copies of Flag to Flag Racing. So I have my old original one that I got when we first had moved. Really cool racing game. There's 19 true-to-life kart circuits, including road, oval, and street courses. 27 authentic kart drivers from 18 actual teams. I had a lot of fun with this game back in the day. Really interesting. I have not played in a long time, so it would be fun to pop it in and check it out, as it's been forever. Next up, I have 3 copies of this, and I didn't even realize I had that until I was going through my games. But Sega Rally 2, Sega Rally Championship, and I have 3 complete copies of this. Fantastic racing game. Really awesome. Loved it. If you love rally games, Sega ones, highly recommend this for the Dreamcast. Awesome game. Next up, we have Suzuki Alster Extreme Racing, so a really cool motorcycle racing game for Dreamcast. Really awesome. Dave Mira's Freestyle BMX, so if you like BMX games, you definitely would enjoy the Dreamcast version. 4x4 Evo, a really cool 4x4 racing game. Looks really good on the Dreamcast. Fantastic title, and you can play it up to 2 people. Next up, no Dreamcast collection is complete without this title, and that is Shenmue. Unfortunately, this is not the version that comes... There was another version of this that came, like a collector's version of this that I don't own. I really wish I did have it. My buddy had it back in the day, but if you had a Sega Dreamcast, you heard about Shenmue, and this game is fantastic. So glad to have the original Shenmue. Now, sadly, we did not get Shenmue 2 released here in the States, so I had to import a PAL copy. But what was neat is the PAL copy was actually here at one of my local game stores. And so I do have the Sega Dreamcast version of Shenmue 2, which is awesome. It's in English. It came with a disc that you put in before, and it lets you play import titles on your Dreamcast without having to mod it at all. And I have played a little bit of it, because the only version we got in America was released for the original Xbox. So I love having the original Dreamcast version of Shenmue 2. So glad to have that in my collection, and I got it for a really good price too at one of my local game stores. That's now goes for a lot more here locally if you can find it. I do have a big box game here, Alien Front Online, real-time voice chat with a microphone included. It's still sealed. I remember playing this back in the day online, and it was a lot of fun, interesting game. I have not played it in years, as I do no longer have an open version of it. I just have this sealed version, and since the online stuff is shut off on it, I don't even know if you really can play much of the game without it. But who knows? Definitely interesting title. I would like to look into maybe checking out and getting another copy sometime, but I am going to leave this one sealed. Next up, we have TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat. Really cool racing game. I'm pretty sure this was also released for the PlayStation 1, but the Dreamcast version is superior to that. Sega GT, another fantastic racing game from Sega. Awesome game. I highly recommend that one. Roadsters, another cool racing game for Dreamcast, which I'm a big fan of racing games, so you guys will see a lot of racing games in my collection. Test Drive 6, love the Test Drive games, and I really love Test Drive 6. I played the hell out of this one. Monaco Grand Prix, another really cool racing game for Dreamcast. Awesome game. Vanishing Point, another pretty cool racing title for Dreamcast. Centipede, little puzzle game for Dreamcast with some 3D effects and stuff. It's an updated version of the old Centipede that was released from arcades. Really cool. Sonic Adventure, one of my absolute favorite games. This is the original copy that I owned. I also have a Sega All-Stars version as well. Love this game. Beat it multiple times. Got all the endings. Got the Super Sonic unlocked. Oh, I love this game. It's so fantastic. They did re-release this for the GameCube and PlayStation 2 and stuff, but I love the original Dreamcast version. So fantastic and very iconic. I also have Sonic Adventure 2 for Dreamcast as well. This has gotten really pricey. I remember getting this for 10 bucks. So glad I got it. Excellent game. It does have some glitches though, as sometimes the initial city level will have no music playing, which is bizarre, but it was something that plagued the early versions of Sonic Adventure 2, so they had to eventually release another version of it later on with later print runs. Next up we have Soul Fighter, so a fighting game for Dreamcast. I don't remember a whole lot about this. Kind of a clunky 3D fighter. I'll have to check it out, but I do remember I had fun with it, but it wasn't bizarre. Here's another game I loved, Fur Fighters. I played this on the demo disc that I had that came with the Dreamcast. Loved it, played it so much that I'm so glad that I was able to eventually get a full a copy of the game, as this was a really fun game. Glad to have that in the collection. Next up is Evil Dead Hail to the King. This is a really cool game that plays kind of like a Silent Hill game or a Resident Evil type game, but it's an Evil Dead game, and it is brutally difficult. I have the strategy guide for this. I actually beat this for PlayStation 1 as a kid. I loved it. That was super difficult, but I have never beat the Dreamcast version, so I would love to check this one out. I think I might play it this October for Halloween. Awesome game. Next up, we have Spec Ops 2 Omega Squad, action-adventure military simulator, which I love the Spec Op games, and it looked really good for Dreamcast. Next up, we have Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, an awesome bicycle game, really cool. Now, I have the Sega Dreamcast web browser, because the Sega Dreamcast lets you browse the internet with dial-up, but you could get the broadband adapter. I never did, but you needed this little demo disc to explore the web, and it came bundled with the Sega Dreamcast. And I actually have 1, 2, 3, and 4 copies of that. Nothing special. Then they also released a web browser 2.0 with SegaNet. So they did release an updated version that was optimized for SegaNet, and get exclusive access to VMU files, explore the World Wide Web, send and receive email, and chat with people around the world. Because this is, you know, when the internet was really taking off and getting larger and bigger, and online gaming was starting. Really cool and interesting thing, and just a relic of the past from the Dreamcast. Have World Series Baseball 2K1, which is pretty fun. I actually have 2 copies of that. World Series Baseball 2K2, so the sequel to that one. Four Wheel Thunder, a pretty cool little four-wheel racing title. Definitely a good one that I would recommend. Grandia 2. I do need to get a new, replace the case for this, because it is kind of beat up. I remember picking this up in Arizona when I was on vacation back in 2014, visiting my buddy Bobby when he used to live in Arizona. Awesome game. Wild Metal, Reclaim the Future. I do not remember much about this one. It's been many years. Would like to play it again and check it out, because it does look kind of cool. Fighting Force 2, love this game, it was awesome. Been years since I played it, but I had a lot of fun. Remember my brother and I had taken turns playing this, we loved it. Resident Evil Code Veronica for Dreamcast. I remember finding this at a flea market here for really cheap. Awesome game. Love Resident Evil Code Veronica, and the Dreamcast is one of my favorite versions of it. Grand Theft Auto 2, love Grand Theft Auto, and this is the classic Grand Theft Auto, the isometric top-down view of Grand Theft Auto, and it plays really well on Dreamcast, so I'm really happy to have this in the collection. Next up, you guys will see one of my favorite racing series, and that is Tokyo Extreme Racer. It was a launch title. I have 2 versions of this, one with a manual, one without. Love this game. This is what started my love for the Tokyo Extreme Racer series. I have this in a custom little light blue case that I took from an old music CD. I just think it looks good and fits well with the color scheme. Love this racing game. You get to go around the streets of Tokyo and do racing at night, and they're real quick little races. I have shared Tokyo Extreme Racer 3 on my weekly gaming playlist series. Definitely would need to go back and play number 1 and beat it again. Fantastic game. Was also happy that several years ago I was able to find the sequel, Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 for Dreamcast, for a good price, because this is very expensive. This goes for about $100 locally now, online like 50, 60, 70 bucks. So happy I got this in the collection, as this is even better than the first one. Fantastic game. Next up we have Tee Off, which is a really cool golf game with some big head characters and stuff. Definitely an interesting golf title, kind of arcadey and stuff. Really good though. Virtua Tennis, little tennis title. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I love this game. I remember playing this on the demo disc a lot of times as well, until I eventually got my own copy of the game. Awesome game. I also have its sequel, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which took everything that was amazing about the first one and dialed the knob up of awesomeness to like 10. Even better than the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Fantastic game. Next up we have Quake 3 Arena, which I love the Quake games. It's a really good one. Conflict Zone, Modern War Strategy. I don't remember a whole lot about this, but I did find it at a thrift store. Looks pretty interesting from the back, though. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Rogue Spear, including Mission Pack Urban Operations, which I love the Rainbow Six games. Really awesome. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, so the original one there. Awesome game. I have 2 copies of the House of the Dead 2, another one I played on the demo disc. Light gun game. You get to kill zombies. You know, this was released in the arcades, but it was really awesome having the game at home to play. Now, unfortunately, you can only play this on the CRT TV if you want to use the light gun, because you can use the controller, but it's better with the light gun. So if you want to play with the light gun, you gotta have an old CRT TV. You cannot play it on a modern one unless you use the controller. But this was awesome, so great. I would like to get the House of the Dead 2 Typing of the Dead, where actually you got to use the Dreamcast keyboard. I used to have that. I wish I had it. It's a fairly expensive game these days. Next up, here's one of my favorite boxing games, Ready to Rumble Boxing. Awesome game. I beat this a couple different times, and I still have my save file, or my boxer, which I'm playing as the Afro dude. I got him with his power up so high from being able to level up and go through the story that I can fight the final boss, and I don't even have to block, and I can beat him because my character's leveled up so much. One of my favorite boxing games of all time. Love this one. Next up, we have Expendable, which this one looked really cool. I only played a little bit of it, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but it was really fun. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. I do need to get a manual for this, but I love the Legacy of Kain series. This one was awesome. Hidden and Dangerous. Interesting little war game. I have not played a lot of this, so I do need to check it out more, but it looks awesome though. Disney's Donald Duck Going Quackers. It's a pretty fun Donald Duck game. D2, a horror game. And yeah, this is the one I do need to get a manual for. Really awesome horror game for Dreamcast. This has gone up in price as well. Next up is Iron Aces High Speed World War II Aerial Combat, which I love my playing combat titles, and this is a World War II one. Really fun game. Zombie Revenge, a pretty cool little arcade zombie game. Mortal Kombat Gold. This was the Dreamcast version of Mortal Kombat 4, which had its own unique features. There's actually another version of this that they had to re-release because the original version of this, which I actually own, has some bugs and glitches. So the new one will say like hot new on the cover, and the disc color will be a little bit different, and that is the updated version they had to release, because in this day, you know, they weren't able to patch a game by you connecting to the internet like Xbox Live or something and update the game. Once the game is pressed on here, if it's glitched and messed up, it's glitched and messed up forever with no way to update it. So they had to re-release another version, but I love this game, beat it many times. Awesome game. Metropolis Street Racer, awesome racing game. Love this. Crazy Taxi. This is the Sega All-Stars version. Awesome game. Played this in the arcade. I love playing it on the Dreamcast a lot. Just had a lot of fun over the years with the Crazy Taxi series. It'd be awesome if they would revive this series. It'd be really cool. Hoyle Casino. So over 350 Vegas-style game variations. You know, just basic casino games. You know, they've released these on different consoles over the years and PC and stuff. Nothing special, just casino games. Next up here we have Cyber Troopers, Virtual On, Oratorio, Tangram. Don't know a whole lot about it, just looked kind of neat, and I got it for pretty cheap at a game store, so I will need to play it sometime. Disney's 102 Dalmatians, Puppies to the Rescue. My son used to love playing this when he was a kid. Obviously, he doesn't want to play it now, as he's going to be 19 soon, but just keep it for sentimental reasons. Worms Armageddon, which I've loved the Worms games, so really cool. It's also become pretty pricey as well, so glad to have that. Soul Calibur, the one that started the Soul Calibur series, absolutely love this. Plays and runs beautifully on the Dreamcast and still looks good today. Next up is Star Wars Demolition. This is from the creators of Vigilante 8. So it's basically like Vigilante 8 and Twisted Metal, but with Star Wars characters. And I had a lot of fun with that. A lot of people kind of hated it, but I had a lot of fun with it. It's fun. If you like Vigilante 8 and you like Twisted Metal, check out the Star Wars version. Really cool. Sonic Shuffle. This was Sega's version of Mario Party. I had played it, but I was not a big fan of it. The mini games, the boards and stuff. It tried to be Mario Party, but it just was not as good as that one's with Sega. If you've never played it before, I'd recommend checking it out, but it's not going to be as good as Mario Party, sadly. I have 2 copies of Sega Marine Fishing, so another fishing game, but I've always loved the Sega Bass Fishing more than this one. Unreal Tournament, which I'm a big fan of the Unreal Tournament series. Really glad to have that in the collection. Awesome game. And finally, Plasma Sword, Nightmare of Bilstein. I remember getting this at GameStop for a penny, and I really wish I would have bought all of them. They had like 50 copies there. The guy had a whole bin, and they pennied them out. And I asked the dude, "Is like, is this really a penny?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, we're trying to get rid of those." And sadly, I heard that what GameStop would do a lot of them is they'd penny them out and throw them away. And I should have just bought them all, because it would have been 50 cents. And this game now goes for like 10, 15, 20 bucks. I wish I would have just bought them all when I saw the whole freaking wall full of these all marked down to a penny. But it was still a really fun fighting game. I've not played it in years. I definitely would like to pop it in again. But I had a lot of fun playing this back in the day. Fantastic game. I really wish I would have bought all of those copies since they were a penny. So there you guys go. That's my updated Sega Dreamcast collection. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what games you guys like for the Sega Dreamcast. If there's any games for the Dreamcast you think I should add to my collection, let me know, because I currently have 88 games for my Dreamcast collection. I'm not going for a complete Dreamcast collection or anything, but these are all the games that I've had over the years, and I don't plan to downsize the collection at all, even the sports titles or a couple of the kiddie titles that I have, as I've just enjoyed the Dreamcast. And the Dreamcast here locally is really hard to find. You know, I always find the same Sonic Adventures and Crazy Taxis and Mortal Kombat Gold and stuff, so I don't see a whole lot of games I don't have. But if you guys do have a recommendation of a Dreamcast title you think I might enjoy, let me know, as I am always looking to expand my Dreamcast collection, as I know there are games out there that I never got a chance to play or ever heard of. And if you guys have a collection video up of your Sega Dreamcast, let me know, as I would love to check it out. I want to thank you guys for watching. Take care. You guys have an amazing day, and Sleepy will see you next time.